This is the final video in a series introducing mutual credit clubs with me, Matthew Slater, and Dill Green. In this session, we're going to talk about what is a mutual credit club and how it fits into all the theory that we've discussed so far, and then what you might be able to do about it. So Dill, what is a mutual credit club?
Well, it's essentially came out of a realization that if the theory that many people have developed over many years about mutual credit and the practical applications that we know are in existence, and which Open Credit Network is one of, mean anything, then they mean double anything in this post-COVID recessionary landscape, and that we have a duty to make this available in the most immediate and straightforward possible way as soon as possible at this time, because economic recessions cause huge hardship because of an artificial scarcity of artificial money tokens, and we believe that we can do something about that. So the idea of a mutual credit club is simply that with a straightforward piece of quite simple software that a group of businesses or people or anyone who wants to try this out as a route to getting some ability to trade when they're short of local currency, whether it's pounds or dollars or euros, whatever. So they can download a piece of software, they can set it up with not really much more effort than you would take to set up a WordPress site, let's say, for no cost, and begin to exchange with each other on the basis of mutual credit. Now, that's the very simplest proposition.
And who do you think is going to do this? Who is it best suited for?
Well, the obvious sort of target audience would be small businesses. Small businesses are likely to be trading with other small businesses and are extremely vulnerable to liquidity credit crunches, because the banks are mostly very unwilling to lend to small businesses. We know that in the UK, many small businesses are actually funded through cash flow crises by the owners using personal credit cards at outrageous rates of interest.
And so how much do you think of a small business's turnover? Could you imagine them processing through a mutual credit network, mutual credit club?
The idea is that we will provide tools that allow as it were, the founding members of a club to put in some very simple version of their income and outgoings and discover for themselves roughly what proportion of their trade is already internal to the group, and then maybe spend a little bit of time thinking about how they could increase the proportion of trade they do inside the group. And in fact, this diagram, which you can see on the left of my head here, is the beginnings of working up such a tool. That is a diagram built from a spreadsheet of such data. And so the tool would be able to recommend that maybe 5 or 10% of the turnover of the businesses involved could be safely taken in this mutual credit accounting unit without risking doing too much before the system is well understood by the new members.
And would these systems be free to use and free to set up?
That's entirely the aim, is to have this open source software, free to use, free to set up. Of course, that can't carry on forever. There are costs to that, but for sure, what the only sensible plan is to make this novel idea available to people with the lowest possible barrier to entry to start with. And so the first 6 months or the first year would likely be free of upfront fees. You would pay small transaction fees if you traded outside your network, but inside your network, you might well set your transaction fees at 0 to start with.
What about transaction taxes? Won't members of small businesses have to pay taxes to the government just as they would if they were dealing with normal money?
That's absolutely true. And all governments that I'm aware of absolutely understand that trade that isn't finalized in state currency units must be accounted for in state currency units. And since the straightforward way of using mutual credit is to start off by assuming that a mutual credit unit is equivalent to the state currency unit, you simply say this transaction was conducted in an alternative system, but the value of the receipt for this goods or services, whatever you've sold, is X pounds, which is exactly the same number of mutual credit units you've done. And indeed, on the Open Credit Network website, there is a blog post written by an accountant who is a member of the network, which gives good clarity about how you would deal with that, even in terms of value-added tax.
So we've got some software already which can be downloaded. Is that really ready to use? And in that case, what happens next in terms of the development of mutual credit clubs?
So the software that powers the Open Credit Network is certainly ready to use, and indeed the easiest way to get started and to put a toe in the water would be to join the Open Credit Network if you're in the UK. It's free to join and it works fine for trading. There are existing members there and people are trading. But we're not quite there yet with that software to fulfill the promise that I laid out earlier. You can't download it and set it up yourself as easily as a WordPress. You would need to be a reasonably competent techie to set that up, but that's entirely possible. But that software is not connected to any other software. So if you set up a club using that software, it wouldn't be able to connect to any other clubs. So you'd be stuck in your own little box. The whole idea of the Credit Commons, as we explained in an earlier video, is to connect these circles together to gain variety and resilience and more opportunities to redeem your credit. So we think that a reasonable time frame for providing such software, if we can move the rest of the project forward, we've financed the raise and the like, is September, so a few months' time.
So we're making these videos to introduce hopefully lots of people to the idea and to the project so that they can be inducted and they can come and talk to us already knowing something about it. And so we're interested in talking to project developers, but also people who actually want to start local mutual credit clubs. And so what would you say to each of those two groups?
So by developers, I'm going to take that to mean builders of any aspect of the infrastructure that's needed to make these things work. And that's not just tech developers, that might be business development types, that might be, we're always interested to talk to economists, to talk to people who can train and support businesses as they set these clubs up, all of those things. If we stay on track, we anticipate that we're going to be building out quite rapidly from maybe June, July this year. And if you look in the text below this video, there will be the best link for you to use to get involved. And I would clearly say that we have great ambitions for there to be sister projects in other languages, in other regions. We're already talking to people in France, in the Czech Republic. We'd hope to connect to the Sardex network in Italy, the Moxie Money network in America, and maybe the Trade Swap network in the Antipodes. So but there's a lot of territory not covered by those networks. And this network will be massively more powerful and more useful the wider its reach. So that's for developers. For people who are actually in small businesses who wonder whether this might be a lifeline or a way to manage their cash flow more beneficially, or who sort of actively have ambitions to move beyond fiat currency, really what you'll need is in your region there to be a project like this which is working towards delivering a package of software that you can set up for yourself. And as I say, in the UK, we're hoping that that might be around September. I couldn't tell you when in other regions, but obviously the more people that get in touch from different regions of the world, the more encouragement there will be for developers in those regions to redouble their efforts. And there are people all over the world wanting to work on this stuff.
We've both been involved in the alternative currencies movement for many years, so we do know many people over the world, but very few projects seem to make it to scale. So this is our hope to use the COVID recession as an excuse to build these alternative monetary networks that we've always dreamed of.
And that's not just what I call disaster mutualism. That's actually on the back of two very clear insights. And that is one, that these networks so far have very rarely been interconnected. And certainly when they have been, it hasn't been in a way that scales easily. And so the fact that they need to be quite small to develop the trust that generates the liquidity has held them back always. And the second difference is that where there are B2B networks, they're mostly started by a commercial entity which sits at the center of the network as like a spider in the middle of the web, and mostly seeks to extract all of the value or most of the value that is gained from the lower cost of finance to the businesses in that network as profit. And so those networks also don't grow because the spiders don't want to give up their members to other spiders, and they also want to milk their customers for as much as they can without actually turning them off. So those networks tend to be sort of valuable-ish to their members, but they don't grow. Whereas the model that we're proposing, every single club will be a mutual owned by its members. No profit extraction.
If you like what you hear, get in touch and follow us on any of the links and websites that you'll see under this video and all around. And we'll be looking forward to hearing from you. If you're a project developer, an organization builder, or a software developer. Thanks for taking the time to listen to us, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks. In mutuality, march on.